Yeah.
Peace and love, y'all. It's your brother A.D.V.I.S, and we are here with another episode of What's the Word Wednesdays, Season 2, Episode 15. With that, as we usually do, I'm going to throw in the comment and the topics in the comments for today. Also, for today, let's go ahead and we are going to rock the logo for today the whole time. And we'll see how that ends up turning out. But as y'all come in here, just let me know how you doing, how y'all feeling, and what's the word. As well as y'all let me know how it sounds. I'm going to use my headphones for today, see how that sounds too. Make sure you can hear both me and the speakers. But shout out to brother Sabu Smooth in the building. The booth is on fire. But what's the word, y'all? What's the word? What's going on? We got to do it this way. Welcome them in. Welcome the folks in. There we go. There we go. But as we're doing that, for today, we are going to be getting into the topics of current events, as we usually do. Got to check in and see what's going on around us in the world. Then we're going to be talking about flow state. What is this concept? Where does it come from? Dig into that a bit. And then lastly, we're going to talk about connecting the gaps in your thinking process. So the whole process of thinking and everything. Yo, peace and love. Hear the influence in the building, y'all. Now, y'all go check out the brother under the influence as well. Very, very talented brother when it comes to MCing. He said, hey, yes, we had to get the effects, bro. Hopefully y'all can hear them. I'm playing around with some stuff, bro. Bringing a little different spice to things, you know? But I think I might want to turn it up a little bit. We'll figure it out. But appreciate y'all that's up in here already. We're going to let a few more people come through. And then after that, we're going to rock with the show song. And then we're going to go ahead and get into these current events. But shouts out to y'all that are here. Shouts out to those who will be watching this later on Instagram or YouTube. If you're on YouTube, like, comment, share, and subscribe. And look out for more from the brother. Okay? Do all that lovely stuff. Right. So we got all of that, yeah, in the building all day. Board games when I move into the fall course, yeah. But one more time, y'all, let me know if I'm sounding good. Please let me know. I don't want it to be sounding terrible throughout the rest, because I'm not able to really hear and get any type of feedback besides from y'all. So just let me know. All right. With that, y'all, let's get into the show with the show song. And once y'all learn it a little bit, y'all can sing along with me too. When you back at the crib, wherever you at, they always asking, man. So we gotta tell them, what's the word, y'all? What's the word? What's the word, y'all? What's the word? What's the word, y'all? What's the word? We tell them like, what's the word? What's the word? What you heard? We gotta know, yeah, what's the word? But once again, peace and love, y'all. It's your brother A.D.V.I.S, and we are here with another episode of What's the Word Wednesday, Season 2. This is episode 15. So once again, appreciate y'all for being in here, taking your time to come out, listen, watch, wherever you may end up being, whether you're on Instagram or YouTube. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and see what your boy gonna be up to. But with that, we got a cool show for y'all today. For today, it's gonna be a lot around thinking in the process of putting your cognitive thoughts and things into action. So for today, we're gonna be getting into the topics of current events, We're going to be getting into the concept of flow state. And lastly, we're going to be talking about connecting the gaps in your thinking process. So whatever you may want to be thinking up or trying to make a decision on, we're going to speak on that. But other than that, y'all, let me see. You sounded good, bro? All right, sounds nice. Up the effects, that'll be good too. All right, for sure. I'm going to figure it out, but appreciate y'all. But with that, let's get into these current events. All right, so for today, the topics and current events that I've sectioned them off into, we're still going to talk about health. We're going to be looking into world or just updates when it comes to finances, companies, and lastly, traveling and warnings. Okay? So, to start off this, we're going to go into the health part. So, we have an article from the New York Times, but it's posted on MSN. And the title reads, "Immunity to the coronavirus may persist for years, scientists find." So, in this particular case, just reading from off of the title, there's going to be scientists' findings around the coronavirus immunity and saying that it can last longer. But we're going to read the first two paragraphs and we will get just a little piece of this for today. So, it says, immunity to the coronavirus lasts at least a year, possibly a lifetime, improving over time, especially after you've gotten the shots, according to two new studies. The findings may help put to rest the lingering fears that protection against the virus will be short-lived. Okay? Second paragraph, it says, together, the study suggests that most people who have recovered from COVID-19 and who were later given the shots will not need boosters. Very interesting point. So they will not need a booster shot, which before we spoke about last show that there were instances of booster shots being made, especially ones that were just like stick-on patches on the arm, kind of almost similar to how smoking patches and stuff were. So that's another thing to be hearing about. Continuing, it says, people who've gotten shots who were never infected with the virus most likely will need the shots. However, as will a minority who were infected but did not produce a robust immune response. So in that particular case, what this basically is saying, this is from me. Once again, you can read this and find this on the New York Times. It says vaccinated people who never were infected will most likely need it. So they're saying you will still need to get the shot, possibly might even be a booster, as well as a small portion of those who got the virus but didn't get a great immune response. So basically, when they got the shot, it didn't do what it was supposed to do when it came to activating within your system. So overall, is laying out, I don't know what the studies are, the two studies. I would have to go back a little bit more further and figure out what particular those two studies were talking about. But, you know, there's a lot more of that information, like I said, on New York Times. But this is the update with that. It's saying that there's two studies showing that this possibly can persist when it comes to the immunity in this virus. But that's the first article. Y'all can throw stuff down too if y'all have anything in the chats. If y'all want to, please do, because it's not only me here. Y'all are also in here too. So please do what you guys would like to do. Hey, yeah. So let's continue. We got, let's see. Brother said, can't trust it until we know who funded these studies. Very great point. Very great point. You always have to go back and end up following the money sometimes. It literally goes to show you that a lot of the times with these tests, it's not necessarily done objectively, at least outside of the realm of who's really funding it. But no, that's a great point. All right. Next one. We have some more studies surrounding COVID. This one's from CBN News. This one says, study finds COVID-19 shot less effective in transplant patients. So, once again, the article states, studies find COVID-19 shots less effective in transplant patients. Peace and love to the brother West Coast Ninja in the building. Much love to you. So, this is basically, from what I've seen, it's going to be talking about how studies have found that in certain transplant patients, whether that's them getting maybe lung or anything else, it shows that the shot has been less effective in helping to treat COVID-19. But let's read the first two paragraphs again. The rest, again, CBN News, look it up. Right. The easing of the COVID-19 restrictions has only added to the fear, and this is in perspective, this is of a 40-year-old Jennifer Chocon, who has fully gotten both shots, yet wholly unprotected from the virus because her immune system is suppressed by medicine she takes to prevent organ rejection. Beautiful. I mean, that's not beautiful. Don't take that as that. I didn't mean it in that particular way. I meant more so finishing my statement. So, she says, I take about 15 pills a day, she says. Dr. Dory Sevick, a transplant surgeon at Johns Hopkins Hospital, said he hears similar stories like this. Similar stories. I would stay all up night for months to figure it out. He said, I'm hearing of transplant and other immunosuppressed people who got the shots and relaxed their safety behaviors are now being admitted to hospitals, and some are passing on because they got COVID-19. So, this is the last point I will say, and we'll stop it from right there. I should talk about the study. I'll do two right here. Two more points and we're done with this one. So, it says, Johns Hopkins studied or tested the shot's effectiveness on Chocon, on the lady, the 43-year-old. She received 2 shots, but produced no antibodies. And look at me over here coughing. I need some water. Which is very interesting. So, I'll go quickly into the study with this paragraph and then we're good. So it says, a recent study published by the Journal of the American Medical Association found that 46% of the 658 transplant patients who got 2 doses of either the Moderna or Pfizer shot produced no COVID-19 antibodies. So, I know, bro. I have to, bro. I was drinking so much today, so I'm wondering what's good. It's like, yeah, you're going to get choked up while you're trying to explain these articles. But from that particular article, y'all, it's basically saying that what some of the concerns, or at least points that I have when it comes to the shots and stuff, is really knowing the wide range of the different effects depending on the different populations of people and their conditions. So it's showing, at least it says 46%. Of course, it's always going to be on both sides of research and statistics, but it's showing that it's not really effective for those who have transplants, as well as for those who have also other pre-existing diseases. I may be wrong, don't quote me on that, but this is just showing you that a lot of this stuff is still very in the trial point of testing. So just be mindful of the decisions and things that you make. Really, at the end of the day, focus on your health and make sure that you are taking the precautions and things that you need to make sure that you are still healthy. That's mostly it. But those are those two articles. Next one, which is just a quick run through now on the last side of this. This is an article coming from CNN, and it's still in the whole health section. And the article reads, "What matters? The origin of COVID is now an intelligence operation." So, basically, let's get to these two paragraphs. Stop it there. So it says, President Joe Biden has ordered a 90-day review by the U.S. intelligence community of what is known about their origins of COVID. So, it says intel operation, not scientific inquiry. So he wants the intelligence community to cooperate with the other elements of government, but getting to the bottom of how the disease occurred, at least in the eyes of the president, dealing with obstruction from China, is now fully an intelligence operation. So, from that, now we'll continue on. Now, Joe Biden is making this an intelligence operation, having the CIA and folks go over there to review where the origins of where this disease originated and came from. So we will see what will be in that 90-day review and how that comes out as the 90 days pass. So that's 3 months. We'll see what happens in the next 3 months when it comes to this review, and we'll find out what information they have gathered from this review. But just knowing that in the whole crisis too, still with things of COVID, figuring things out, now the president is taking the charge using CIA and the intelligence community to make this review. So that's enough of health, aka COVID news. If y'all have anything, please throw them in the comments. I appreciate y'all being here and I appreciate y'all's participation. If y'all have anything, tell me what's the word. Let me know. Right. Next one. This also is in line with health. It caught my eye. I'm not going to speak a lot on it, but title reads, and this is from NPR, it says, controversial new guidelines would allow experiments on more mature human embryos. So this is in the whole idea. Again, it is a bit of health, but in the treatments, okay? And if y'all not too sure, people know human embryos. Human embryos is basically human eggs, the cells themselves. So now this is a guideline that's trying to allow for more experimentation on mature human embryos. Let's see what the two first paragraphs say. And like I said, this is from NPR News if you want to look this up. So it says, for decades, scientists have been prohibited, it means they've been stopped, halted, from keeping human embryos alive in their labs for more than 14 days. The prohibition was aimed at avoiding a thicket of ethical issues that would be raised by doing experiments on living human embryos as they continue to develop. But on Wednesday, an influential scientific society recommended scraping that blanket taboo known as the 14-day rule. That's the 14-day rule. The International Society for Stem Cell Research released new guidelines that says it could be permissible to study living human embryos in the lab for longer than 2 weeks. So, what's going on, Kundan? Good to see you in here. Appreciate you. What's the word? So, like I said, not gonna read too much more into it, but right now there is new guidelines that are being proposed by the International Society for Stem Cell Research to extend the 14-day rule of being able to conduct experiments on living human embryos longer than 2 weeks. So just keep that in mind. That's been going on for a long while, and where some of the money and funding is coming from to do these things. Just bringing that to your attention. But other than that, that's that there. We'll move to the next few things. Two of them being, well, like I said, in travel, and then news, but once again for, we'll just say finance. So we have NPR News. It reads, pipeline companies will have to report cyber attacks to the government. Which is interesting, because we know about, or if you haven't heard, there was a whole crisis, really want to say a lot more back east, Midwest, I may be wrong, y'all can quote me, don't quote me on it, where gas was becoming a pushing thing where everybody's going to go get gas and stuff. Oh, it's Steph, y'all, in the building. Appreciate you, Steph. How you doing, fam? Good to see you in here. But there was a whole push where everybody's going and just starting to fill up on gas. They're getting plastic bags, all that they can when it comes to getting food and everything. Not food, but getting gas, because it was starting to become limited resource. At least, once again, when it comes to a lot of things of this nature, people start to go into a panic, and they start doing it because things seem scarce to them, so everybody and their mama is going to go get gas, which, you know, to subside that and really just take your time to breathe and figure it out, you get to see. But from here, it looks like there's cyber attacks being done onto these pipeline companies, so we'll figure out what it is. What's good, fam? Just checking. Appreciate you checking in, always. What's the word? Let us know. What's the word? Right. Read the two first articles, then we out with this one. Bruh, I got you. Look it. What? Exactly. I gotta hit you with the. What? I don't understand it. Right. So first paragraphs. For the first time, the Department of Homeland Security has decided it needs to regulate cybersecurity in the pipeline industry. It is expected to require such key infrastructure companies to report cyber incidents to the federal government. You would think, but you know, once again, the move, first reported by the Washington Post, means a new set of rules to safeguard pipeline companies against cyber attacks such as ransomware that crippled Colonial Pipeline this month. I'm not too sure what Colonial Pipeline is, but I'm thinking that's a particular, company. The attack forced it to shut down, creating panic and fuel shortages for days, makes sense, across the southern and eastern United States. There it is right there. So, because of that, in that particular case, that's what caused a bit of the shortage and what was going on. There's definitely more in this article to read, but that is just the shorthand of it. I like to read at least 2 to 3 of the paragraphs. But, security is very important. So, especially if you're a big company, I would think you would invest a lot of, money when it comes to making sure your security online and in real life is tight. So shut tight. But that was something I wanted to share with y'all. We got 2 more and then we'll be done with the current events for today. But if y'all have anything that's going on currently around you, please throw it in the chat. Let us know. Tell us what's the word. Right. Next one again, we'll do some more security stuff going on. So, for those of you who are traveling, I'm saying it again. For those of you who are traveling, this is from CNN. It says, travel is back, and so are travel scams. Okay? This is the first, it reads, with more widespread vaccination shots and relaxed travel restrictions, many people are making long-awaited vacation plans. But scammers are making plans of their own to separate eager travelers from their money via too good to be true vacation packages, fake air deals, and other shady schemes. So, consumer advocacy organizations such as Better Business Bureau are issuing warnings about an increase in incidents involving scammers who often pose as airline ticket brokers and travel agents via telemarketing calls. Once again, put the two together. And I'll read the last and that'll be it. Another common tactic is to imposer or spoofed websites that mimic legitimate booking platforms for airfare, hotels, or rental cars, but do not deliver the product as promised. So, if y'all are traveling, just know, now these scammers is ready. They're ready. They're like, yo, people are going, they're going to different places. All right, let's get on our game. So just be worried. Anything that when you're traveling or when you're buying a ticket, which a lot of it, we do this all online, unless you do go day of to buy a ticket or anything ends up changing. Just be careful of, you know, where you're buying it from, as well as if you are buying it from a website. One thing that I check, and this is just off of the top, is I always go up to the top of the browser and I make sure I look at, there should be a lock near the URL of the browser. There should be a lock there and it says view site information, and it'll tell you if the site is secure or not. If it's not secure, you want to definitely take that into consideration and be like, okay, this is not a secure connection, so what is going on with this? So you can at least make sure that it's legit what it is. Sometimes. And then there's some websites that they really mimic it so well that it makes it hard. But if you're unsure and you kind of don't have that feeling, yeah, trust your intuition. Trust that gut. If it's something that it doesn't make sense, don't go for it. Okay? But yeah. So, that's with that. Let me look at the comments. I throw this last one in here, which is just something to know, but it don't really matter much. For those, if it may, but may not. But let's see. So, Brother Kundan said, yeah, it's funny that it's even called Colonial Pipeline. I wonder which colonizers created that company. You know, patent it, put it, boom, there it is. But yeah, that's a funny comment there, yes. There was an act of firearms terrorism in San Jose this month. I saw a bit of it. I didn't get to that article. I was looking for it, so I don't know too much more on that. If you do, Kundan, please throw it in the comments. But yeah, that's another thing to speak on. Gun control, all these other things that, you know, with all the other craziness too. And then, of course, being yesterday, like the brother is saying right now, that this is the 1 year mark for the murder of George Floyd. So, All of those things to keep in mind and consider and to at least know of. Once again, just being aware of what's happening around us. We can't sit around and do nothing no more. We definitely need to educate and make sure we are aware of what's going on. What's the word, y'all? Right. Lastly, for those who shop and use Amazon, I am a person, I swear, like I just finished getting a lot of stuff from Amazon, but this isn't Amazon news, but no matter anything else. So Amazon has now made a deal to buy MGM for nearly $8.5 billion. And for those who don't know MGM, that is Metro Goldwyn Mayer, which is basically the company, movie company, the one you see with the tiger that go, oh, like that's literally them. So now, on top of Amazon buying and purchasing Whole Foods, if y'all didn't know, also they purchased Whole Foods. Now they have purchased Metro Goldwyn Mayers as well. So Amazon, y'all watch out, about to buy up the whole place like this monopoly. But all right, that was just the other random news. Other than that, y'all, that has been the current events. If y'all have anything else, please throw them down in the comments. I appreciate it. Much love to everyone that's up in here. And we are going to keep this show on the road and keep it going. So, next topic we're speaking on for today is the flow state. Now, some of y'all may know, others may not know. But before I get in and I explain and give at least some definition and background on flow state, and we get into it, for those who are here, when you think of flow or even think of a flow state, what comes to mind? Y'all put them in the comments. So when you hear the word flow or the phrase flow state, what comes to mind? As I'm trying to get all my other stuff together. Let's see. All right, for sure. Boom. Right. As y'all are doing that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hit you with some definitions for flow and then speak on the concept of flow state, and then we'll go from there, adding more layers on top of it. So, from the Webster's Dictionary, flow means a few things. First one, to issue or move in a stream. That's flow. To issue or move in a stream. Next one, circulate. So flow, to circulate. To move with continual change of place among the constituents. So to move in a continual place. Another flow. The rise, the tide, the ebb, and the flow. So back and forth. As well as to proceed smoothly and continuing. So to proceed smoothly and continually. To hang loose. And this is to derive from a source. So the flow is to derive from a source, as well as to deform under stress without cracking or rupturing, which is definitely interesting. And the other one is a definition, which is the monthly cycle for women. I'm not going to say the word, but you know. But that's all, some of those for this one for flow. Now, For the next one, before I do, let me see what's going on in the comments real quick with the word for flow. But let's see. Ann Cooper, white woman who called the cops on Christian Cooper, is now suing her former employee for firing her over the incident with audacity. Too much stuff going on. Yep. Too much. Flow is like the zone in sports, right? In that particular case, it doesn't only apply just to sports, and like I said, we'll dig into it a bit more. It can apply to anything that you're doing creatively, or even just just being in the moment. It's almost like mindfulness in a way, but not so much. So we'll see. Hold on. So next one on flow. This is the psychology side of flow. So flow is a cognitive state where one is completely immersed in an activity. And this can be from painting, writing, to prayer, surfboarding, etc. It involves intense focus, creative engagement, and the loss of awareness of time and self. So I'll talk about a bit of the process and what this is about, and we flesh it out. Peace and love is a sister. Superb, aka Big Sue, in the building. What's the word? Right. This process of flow was discovered and coined by the Hungarian American psychologist Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, which is a weird, but I usually just call him Csikszentmihalyi. From what I remember, I learned this in psychology. But basically, he studied this process, this creative process, and he found that when an artist was in the course of flow, they would persist at their task relentlessly, regardless of hunger or fatigue. I know we've probably felt and had that happen before, if y'all know what's going on. He also found that the artist would lose interest after the project was completed, highlighting the importance of the process and not the end result, which is very interesting. Yes, in art. I know specifically to art, but you can get into the flow state in anything else too if you apply certain particular traits. But yes. But that is flow in a psychology sense. But basically, that's the set premise of what the flow state is. The flow state, once again, is coined by the Hungarian American psychologist Mihai, which you say Csikszentmihalyi, but I like to say Csikszentmihalyi. And it just pertains around the idea of being in the moment and being able to block out everything else that's going on around you to hyper in and focus on a project, an activity, whatever it may end up being. And you lose all sense of time and where everything else is going on. You feel like, yes, you're in the flow state. You're in a different space within either your mind, body, everything all put together. Like it's all there. So, what do we want to flesh out about it? So why the flow state? Why talk about the flow state? You know, what are some benefits to the flow state? Why will we even need to know about this concept? Well, yeah, the famous book called Flow by, yeah, that's exact. Yeah, okay, yes. I need some crypto flow. I flow in the sense of getting that, but see, currency also is a flow too of energies, but I'm not gonna get too much into that. But basically, being able to access and get into this flow state, it's an experience where, yes, a lot of folks are saying, I see the brother here talking about when you can be in that flow state when you're dancing. Yes, you like what I was saying before, whatever particular activity you can end up being. You can even be in the flow washing dishes. You might even have headphones in and you're just listening music and you just lost in the motions of you just washing the dishes. I use it as an example so much because I just say it's a common thing, but that could be done. But what the flow state does is it gets you very present. So you're there. Nothing else is mattering. So that means what you're thinking about is going to happen in the future or would have happened in the past is non-existent. You're in the moment, no anxiety, no stress, maybe a little if you're thinking of the want to be the end product. But when you're in a flow state, all of that goes out of the window. And I know for myself from experience and being in a flow state, which I'll give a story about it and continue with it. But being in that flow state, it really grounds you. It's nothing else can top you. Like literally, like anybody could walk into my room while I was in a flow state and I'm still in it and I'm not even paying attention because everything else is blocked from the outside. You know, there can be some very, other, you can say, cons to that being a thing, but you're not going to be in a flow state all day, every day, 24/7. But before I speak on the benefits, and y'all are more than welcome to come in and also speak to your experience if you've had one like this with it too, on a flow state. But one of the most memorable flow state moments that I've had was actually when I first found out and I got introduced to iMachine, which is basically a beat making app, and I have it for iPhone right now. It's only for iPhone, is iMachine, which I use the program here on my laptop to make beats as well too. But that was my first introduction to this particular app. And what ended up happening was I also was studying abroad at the same time. So I'm in a different place. So I studied abroad in Italy back way when 2013. And when I found out about this app, all the people that I was staying with, they went out for the weekend for the strengthening and they were gone all those 2-3 days. And I stayed home. And I found this app. I asked my roommate if I could use his little small speaker. And before I knew it, y'all, I started downloading that app, playing around with it, 6 p.m. that time. And before I knew it, because I was having so much fun with it, I was in the flow, I was there with it. I ended up looking up, and I looked out my window, and the sun is rising. I check my watch and I look and I'm like, yo, it's about 6:30 a.m. And I'm in my head like, I was just making beats at 6 p.m. How did it get to 6 a.m.? And that's always a vivid memory for me. It's like, how was I in that state for almost 12 hours? I didn't go use the restroom. I didn't think about hunger. I was in the moment, just in there, figuring this program out, making beat after beat after beat. And I was just so focused that everything else around me did not catch my attention until I was coming out of that state. So that may be, I'm not saying it's like a crazy example, but for me, it's just a very vivid example of 12 hours of just in the mode, nothing. And end up seeing the change from night to day, which is very crazy for me. But yeah, let's see. We got the brother wanted to come in, or I should say we got us to come in. So please do that. He say, yeah, I experienced the flow of my dance too, and sometimes with painting. So, yes. So with that, y'all like to welcome Kundan. So, what's the word, brother? What's the word? How are you doing? All right, what's the word? How are you? We got you here. We back. If not, jump back in if you can, because I see a little bit. It's still buffering a little bit. So make sure you go ahead and figure that out. You want to jump in next? Brother, please, you're more than welcome to. I appreciate anyone that wants to come in. You can, whenever, that is fine, brother. You know what? Look, we'll do this because we can still actually do three people at once. So you're more than welcome to come in or right on this, right next to him.
What's good? What's up,
Yo,
man?
what's going on, brother? Peace, love. Hold on, we gotta welcome you in.
Oh, now I
Yeah,
Thank
can
you,
see
thank
you.
you.
Hey,
perfect. It was,
How's it going, man?
man. What's the word?
I'm alright. I wanted to just kind of like add something to the whole flow state
Mm-hmm.
conversation. Um, so I often have trouble dealing with like getting into a flow state because I'm always so mindful of time.
Mm-hmm.
And something that my wife got me that really helped me kind of conquer that, which
Yes.
helped me kind of get into the flow and stay in the flow now almost at will, is this
Mm.
clock that she got me. And
Mm.
the way how this clock works is it's like a visual aid. So you just like, you put like whatever amount of time you want
Yes.
on the clock, and then it'll just like, slowly go down. And when it goes away completely, then, time's up. So I like to apply that with like the same principle of like the 3 second rule to like
Mm.
get me started.
Yes.
So it's like I'll put like let's say I need to work on a new song. I'll put like
Mm-hmm.
15 minutes to start.
Yes.
The 15 minutes will go away, but I'm already in that flow state. I'm already doing what I got to do. So I
Yes.
do it. And then if I feel like I want more time, I'll just go and pull some more time and keep going. And as long
Yes.
as I see red, I know I need to keep going. And it's different than looking at a clock, because
Yes.
when you look at a clock, you're mindful of like time in relation to everything else. Where when
Yes.
you look at this representation, you're just you're just aware of the time spent on this one activity
Yes.
versus in relation to all the other activities that you may need to get done for the day. So I just thought that would help, and that's why I wanted to pop in the chat just to like show what I use to help me. But
Yes.
I'm sure y'all have your own tools and stuff like that. So
Oh no, you're
I,
good, brother.
yeah, so I'll jump out now, but I just wanted to share that, and I appreciate you letting me jump on.
Oh yeah, no, brother. Always, I appreciate your your energy and you coming on and sharing, man. Because that was, you gave me such a great jumping point to start with that too, to start on this. So appreciate you, brother.
Cool.
Thank you. If y'all don't know, that's the brother Under the Influence. Go check this brother's page out. Go up there at the top. You see, says What's the Word Wednesday. Hit that pin up there. Go follow this man. He
yeah, I
got some
just
heat,
followed.
a lot of heat. Please do. Is a really dope brother. Not only musically, but if you don't see about a personality as well too, please do.
Thanks, y'all. Appreciate it.
Yes, yes. All right, brother. Once again, let's welcome you again.
Yeah.
So what's going on, Kundan? What's the word? Let me know. What's the
Love,
flow? What we
love.
flowing with?
Yeah, I was just looking it up online as we were reading, because there's also a relationship between challenge and skill. So uh, they're kind of like inversely related. So like if
Yeah.
there's too much challenge, that's versus skill, that's when you get anxiety, right?
Mm.
And then when there is too much skill,
Yes.
way more skill than the challenge, then
Yes.
it's too easy
Just
for
two.
you.
Yep.
Then you get bored. There's boredom, apathy. Uh, so yeah, so you need like the right relationship. And
Yes.
what I'd originally known was somehow they discovered that if the challenge is exactly 4% greater than skill, that's when you get.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Yes. Kundan's cooking.
know, about half of those are kind of neutral, like
Yes.
boredom,
Yeah.
relaxation,
Check it
control,
now
and
with the
even
rhyme I'm
arousal. I'm
bringing.
good with
Can't
those.
move in time.
So, like, I mean, my
Mm.
point is like, if you're not in flow, like, the irony is if you just relax and not beat yourself up for not getting the flow, that's when you get into
Yeah.
flow just by keep doing it.
Yes. I'm I'm
Yeah.
so I'm grateful for both you and for the brother under the influence, because I started talking about the flow state, but I didn't even get to speak on how do you even initiate getting into the flow state. And
Hmm.
you gave a lot of different points of all the different states that's in between to do there, as well as the requirements for you to
Hmm.
get into the flow state. If something is too
Yeah.
hard and is past your particular skill, it becomes too much to the point where you're not going to end up getting into it, and vice versa. If riding a bike is super
Hmm.
easy to you and then literally that's it, then I mean, it's going to be, honestly, it's boredom, like you were saying. So, and then in the example of using what the brother came in and he uses his visual aid, that was a great way to show of a catalyst, so something to bring you
Hmm.
and to get you started, so then when you
Hmm.
jump into it, it just adds to it, or if not, it could completely disappear because of the fact that you used it as that starting point to get you into there. So yes, there is going to be various different states within the flow state. There's always going to be that, because it's a such thing as steps. You always got to start somewhere to get there. Not everybody and their mama starts off in a flow state off of a particular task. You got to be able to meet the particular requirements for whatever task that you're doing. You got to have, like you said, that talent with the skills, and it pairs and it puts you in there. The first part of that requirement too is that, honestly, you got to like what you're doing. Like
Hmm.
you have to be able to have some type of
Definitely.
interest in whatever it is for you to be able to even initiate getting into the flow state. Because I don't like
Mm.
if I don't like going outside and watering the grass and cutting the leaves and doing this, you know, one, yes, I'm gonna make it a more harder time on myself because I'm gonna be complaining most of the time doing it. But if it was something that was interesting and, more of an engaging activity for me, before I know it, I could just be
Hmm.
mowing, doing all of this stuff, and literally 3 hours or whatever more has passed, and I feel like it was only 10 minutes. And it's really
Hmm.
just that prerequisite of also you have to have an interest in that. So I'm glad you two really brought up and helped to really get that going, because I was just talking
Hmm.
about the flow state and didn't give the details.
Yeah.
But if you got more, please do.
And you said earlier about being on that app, right? And
Yes.
that was the first time you were on that app, right?
Yes.
That's a good point because in my research I found that novelty can also be one of the requirements for flow.
Mm.
So that's a
Yes.
perfect example because that was new for you. So
Mm-hmm.
that was part of the requirement. Yeah.
And I mean, with anything that's new to people, the interest is definitely, especially if it's something that they
The
really
interest,
like,
yeah.
the interest is very
Mm,
high. So you're going to be
yes.
willing to
That's
want to
another
do it
requirement, yeah.
because the interest is there. So a lot of stuff in the arts get a lot more, of that flow state, and it's more geared towards that because of the fact that you may know how to paint, but when you're always starting a new piece, you're going to figure out, okay, what is this even going to lead me to? Same thing with making a song. You may have the idea, maybe you haven't came up with the beat or the composition yet, but just that initial interest and excitement of like, this is something new about to happen. I don't know where it's going to take me. That's what gets that starting to drive, versus other things that you normally do. But once you've learned what your starting points or your catalysts or triggers are that help to get you in that state, you could
Hmm.
tap in and use that in anything that you're doing to a certain extent, yes. But that's where it comes to learning what works for you, getting different visual aids, getting maybe a timer that a particular sound puts you right into the mode. I know another example for myself is when I would write papers, especially new papers when I was in school. Sometimes I didn't have that initial feeling wanted to, because who really likes to write papers in schools, like 5, 10, 20 page papers, and sit down in one sitting trying to do that? I don't know if there's some folks who like doing that. I mean, kudos to y'all, but I know for me, I was just like, man, forget these papers. Like, I know what I know. But what ended up helping me actually to get into a flow, to sit
Mm-hmm.
down and do that in one sitting, and not to be so fully stressed about what's going on, this, and there, I used a music aid. So I would put on type of meditative music or some type of calming music in the background that actually kept me rooted in knowing, okay, as this time is winding down or whatever's going on, I'm gonna set 30 minutes and I'll try to just sit here and start writing for 30 minutes, have the music in the background. And what would happen is, even though my timer would go off, I'll stop the timer and then I will just continue to go in, and I'm writing this paper, and before I know it, I started off with because only 2 sentences, and I come up to end up having 3, 4, 5 pages already. And for me, that just also brings to the point of how, too, there are going to be times, like I said, you do want to have that interest, but once you've learned how to find those points and starting points that help you, you could apply this to things that you don't necessarily find that interesting, but still be able to utilize it.
Mm-hmm.
You have another one in there?
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
what's up, Chris? Peace and love.
Hi,
Yes, you're
Alien Space
good.
Queen.
You're good. You're good. Fam, you good.
That's a really good point about the interest because, and also like the subtleties of like what each activity does for you, so that you can sometimes
Yes.
use one activity as a jumping point to get into flow into another thing.
Yes.
Especially for me as a multi-creative person, like
Yes.
I feel like, for example, painting relaxes me. It gets me into a state of, it gives me a lot of serotonin, right? Versus
Mm-hmm.
take breaks. Um, like when I actually finish my
Mm-hmm.
writing piece, then I get rewarded with dopamine.
Yes.
So what I've been trying lately
Yes.
is, because dance comes easiest for me, I dance first sometimes and get
Mm-hmm.
into flow that way, and then use that dance energy to get into painting or writing. I use it as a jumping point to get into another activity, so that I use
Yes.
that momentum of flow and harness it for flow in another activity that I want to do. So that's
Beautiful.
another thing you can do. Like,
Yes. And
yeah.
to your point of doing that, and for those two, Kundan, when he's speaking about serotonin and endorphins, and we have dopamine, these are all different chemicals within our body that gives us different type of rewards, and the different
Mm-hmm.
reward systems, why we want to come back to doing a particular activity. So those are the scientific,
Exactly.
neurotransmitter type names and stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
also, to add to your point, that's why it's very important to, once you be able to find that catalyst and what works for you, that becomes your routine. And when you get your routine down, there's a point where you'll start to be able to tap into the flow state or whatever state you want to tap into faster and faster, because you've went through that and you've been able to use it to your benefit so many times that, okay, I did this particular activity and I felt this particular way. Now I have the energy to want to go ahead, and now I want to go outside, ride my bike, or I want to go outside and now I want to work out.
Mm-hmm.
There's another, I'll add in with the neurotransmitters and all this other stuff too, just because this may be off the topic of flow state, but just to at least reel back the reward that you get from it. And we'll talk about the other
Mm-hmm.
benefits. But I don't know for y'all, but I know for myself, I noticed, and she said wings are my reward. So goofy. Um, when when I go outside and I end up either doing my boxing workout or I do just my regular workout and then I get my run in, I noticed that after I've done that, my body actually wants to go ahead and it ends up wanting to get an apple. And then it wants me to move into end up either reading or doing something else. So from me learning and noticing that once I've given my body certain particular rewards, it ends up being a jump start to get me into a different activity. And it's based off of the fact that one, I've done it almost routinely, that it just made sense. Like, now I want you to put this energy towards here. But then at the same time, it is a firm reminder that not only that we're not just driven by these particular neurotransmitters or these different chemicals in the body, but learning how to utilize these to our benefit. And going back into the topic idea of the flow state, knowing how to use that flow state to be productive, get what we want to accomplish done, even if it may quote unquote take a particularly long set of time. The thing is, you're sitting in that moment and you're getting it done regardless of what it may end up being. And the more sharper you do it, the more sharper you become with it, the quicker you can start churning things out. Once again, repetition and practice. But if you have
That's a great
go,
point,
yeah,
repetition and practice,
yes,
because I think some people get addicted to flow, right? And
yes,
and this is when they start uh, getting into some we use these they don't get into mastery because they want that quick reward all the time. So I think part of being in flow,
yes.
ironically, is to accept that most of life is actually not in flow, but in the plateau. That there are these long plateaus, which
Mm,
actually, during those plateaus, you're building the skill
yes.
to rise up to the next challenge so that you can be in that flow again, in that cognitive flow. And then long plateaus and the next level of flow of that balance between
Mm,
challenge and skill. Then long plateaus
mm,
and the next balance of challenge and
yes.
skill. So every level of flow ideally should be higher and higher or deeper and deeper.
Yes.
But you gotta practice during the plateaus and learn to enjoy the long plateaus also. That's part of flow too.
Mm,
That's part of the flow equation too.
beautiful. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you for fleshing that out too, because once again, we're just setting, giving bits and parts on how to. Once again, if y'all want to learn more, you just look it up. Flow state, go through, find all that information and what serves you. But with that too, a benefit for that particular formula and how that sets up is the beautiful thing with doing that, doing it step by step, one plateau, then reaching to be able to climb to the next one, is also
Mm-hmm.
teaching you how to overcome hardships and challenges when they arise. And
Mm-hmm.
knowing that even when something looks very difficult and is hard, I have the talent, I have the skill, I have the problem solving tools to be able to do this. Now, how do I apply them to be able to step in to that next realm or that next plateau? And that helps to get, once again, you get your thinking going, you get into that flow, and it's helped to really build on those problem solving skills. Um, Another thing for me personally, when I'm thinking of the flow state and the benefit of it, also too, is being able to focus and be in the moment. So really teaching yourself how to
Mm-hmm.
sometimes slow down, hone in on what you're trying to get done or what you want to get accomplished, and be able to keep that attention there for a longer span of time versus our average time span now when it comes to that. So being able to hold your attention further into things, and that spills over into being able to be more of a listener, actively listening, as well as being able to actively observe everything else that is happening and going around you. So it really, for me, when it comes to the flow state, another benefit of it too is, even though they say that you are unaware of what's going on around you because you're so focused and aware of what's happening right now in the moment, you can also take that outside of yourself, out of the flow state, and become more aware of what's going on around you. So it's a reverse. So it can do both sides if you use it that way. I don't know if you had any
Mm.
benefits that may came to mind, because I know you spoke a bit on a con that could happen with that. But if you have anything else, please, Kundan.
Yeah, those are definitely the benefits. Yeah, it's great that you're pointing out the benefits too, because so far we've only been talking about the how-to rather than um, why do we even want to be in flow, right? What are the
Yes.
benefits?
Yes.
And those are great benefits. And also, basically, besides the enjoyment, right? The insane levels of enjoyment when you're in flow. It's also you're in peak performance, peak
Mm.
productivity, right?
Yes.
While it feels like nothing had happened, right? At the same time, that's what happened to you. Like the 12 hours, 6 p.m. to
Yes.
6 a.m., you were accomplishing a lot, and yet
Yes.
it felt as though nothing had happened. That time had not even passed. That's the paradox of flow too,
Yes.
where you accomplished so much and you're enjoying it, and yet
Yes.
uh, time disappears. And then that's so
Yes.
magical. Like to be able to do something in peak
My ears hear everything. I know I've been chosen, but what is uncertain in the world spinning? Hold on to the surface. I know it's versus simplicity at its finest. Yes.
that's flow. That's a benefit of flow too.
Yes. Yes. Tapping into that unknown energy, that infinite universe, whatever you want to end up calling it. People have so many different names for it, but yes, being
Hmm.
able to have those particular points and benefits is a part to that. Um, Now
Yeah,
we've already talked about, okay, what
but
would be the what would
to
be the
our
purpose? But go ahead.
but also to our point earlier about the challenge and the skill and the plateaus, right? I actually wrote a poem about this. It's called Bittersweet. Bittersweet. It's a short poem. May I read it?
Of course you can. Please do.
Yeah, so it's called Bittersweet.
Even the name itself, y'all, it's already getting the mind going with it. But please do share, Kunden. Please do.
It's in three parts. I mean, I love that I get to read it here because with the context that we set, you're more likely to understand this poem than
Yes.
anybody else I've read this to, you know. So, Bittersweet by Kundan.
Mm.
Climbing, wind in my face, chills down my spine, the hairs on my skin waking up from their bed, getting up, ready for the next step in the adventure. Sweat
Mm.
freezing back on me. I shiver. I look up. There seems to be millions of miles of ice still to climb, but I smile. In the raft with my beloved and our heirs, the water rushes. We paddle hard. The waters push harder. We almost topple,
Mm.
but our senses heighten. Our eyes grow wider. Our vision sees more.
Mm.
Fog disappearing. Our lenses getting clearer as the adrenaline and the endorphins rush. Our muscles tense even as our minds relax.
Mm.
The tension is just the right amount though. It actually feels good.
Hmm.
We are alert, yet calm. Our ears can see. Our
Mm.
eyes can feel. Our skin can
Yes.
hear. It's so magical. And we are together, this family I love so much. We get to the other side. The sight makes our jaws drop. Then we hug each other and huddle together, tears in our eyes, our skin softening, muscles relaxed, feeling so blessed. My finger is tense sometimes. my shoulders
Mm,
hunched.
mm,
Pleasure. The exact orchestration of emotions create
mm, mm,
that
Woo! Yeah, y'all. Yeah, y'all. That was a journey for sure with that piece. But what also brought to my case, which thank you, Kundan, thank you for sharing that. That was a wonderful piece. Um, what it made me start thinking about, and shouts out to the brother Saab, you, shouts out to the booth is on fire. But it brought to
oh,
mind,
you're back. Yeah.
yes, beautiful. Appreciate you sharing that. And what you ended up helping me also come to mind after that piece, which so many moving parts there, so much going on there, but that's a very great explanation and visual for some people if you're able to see it as well as just a verbal of the whole idea of something being bittersweet, but then talking about how something can be so hard but then feel so good. And then but it reminded
Mm-hmm.
me so much of a track that me and the brother is going to be coming out soon for y'all, which the track is called Spatial Awareness. And
Mm,
speaking about how being able to be aware, not only like you were saying, how you feel and see in the different emphasis where you can
mm,
touch with your ears and other all of these here, but being
mm-hmm.
able to be in that spatial awareness, that moment there to be aware of everything that's going around you, a full 360, whether if you can hear it,
Mm,
see it, smell it, all of those things, and just being aware, knowing that the power in that, as well as a lot of that too being from an instinctual feeling of things too. But thank you for sharing that. Think
mm-hmm.
that's a really good spot, honestly, to just leave it a bit for the flow state,
Mm,
but we can always still bring it back up.
yeah.
And going into the last topic for tonight, y'all, which I do
Mm,
these on purpose. If you haven't caught on how I do these topics, stay aware. But last topic for tonight, talking about now, we got the flow state. Now talking about connecting the gaps in your thinking process. So now
mm,
this all loops and tie back into how the brother came on early again. Shouts out to the brother under the influence, aka here the influence, on how there's some folks is like, okay, A.D.V.I.S.S, okay, Kundan, you say and you talk about, okay, these are the ways to go into the flow state or get your ideas and stuff moving. But what if I experience writer's block? I know, Kundan, yourself, you actually have a video of how to, address
yeah, I just
writer's
did it
block.
last
So
week.
if y'all
Yeah.
don't, please follow Kundan.
Check
He
it
has
out.
so many different, strategies on a lot of different things. So
Mm-hmm.
okay, how do I even get started of even being in a flow state? What would this work? Why is my thinking and things all over the place? Well, when we're thinking about connecting the gaps, first thing we got to figure out is what are you trying to connect in the first place? So, whether that may end up being a concept that you're trying to get down as being a student, whether it might end up being a procedure as a doctor, wherever this may end up being, or also on top of that, knowing your thinking process. So the idea of knowing how you think, which we would call that metacognition, and seeing how Some people may say either you feel scatterbrained or you might be thinking all over the place, or sometimes you're just straightforward with your thinking. But how do I get it to connect and move cohesively and flow with what I'm trying to get out?
Mm-hmm.
And my point to that, to be telling people when we want to be connecting those gaps in your thinking, of course, knowing, okay, what do you want to connect? The next thing is, okay, how do you even start your process? Because once again, the thinking process. Sometimes we
Mm-hmm.
just don't. Sometimes, yes, we can just randomly think stuff. Yes, there's no process to that. I could be walking down the street and just think, oh, wow, I wonder if 10 dogs come out of nowhere. Like, we can
Mm-hmm.
randomly think things, yes. But when we're trying to engage in an activity, do a job, a chore, whatever it may end up being, we go through a thinking process of how we're going to start to do this particular activity. So
You mean make it more like organized or systematic?
in a particular way, yes. Not everything,
Yeah.
like I said,
Mm-hmm.
we've spoken on before. Not everything is going to be completely straightforward, organized, and stuff. You can always, there's a such thing as freestyling, impromptu, all
Mm-hmm.
these things that can happen sporadically, yes. But now we're talking about how to build at least a consistent
Mm-hmm.
connector to help you when it comes to those gaps. You can randomly always have something happen and it works, but then if you don't remember how you did that to make it work, how is that going to help you? So now, how do I connect this?
Wait, what do you mean by the gaps in the thinking, though? Like, what do you mean by the gaps
So think
in the
of
thinking
it.
process?
I think of it in this particular case when you think of the gaps in your thinking process is like an equation, as well as even a
Mm-hmm.
sentence. So say that you're trying to get out a sentence telling somebody that they need to pay attention to what's going on in front of them. And just
Mm-hmm.
in visual, if y'all want to picture this and see it, that same sentence I just said, there might be words missing.
Mm-hmm.
And it might not be on purpose. Sometimes it may be. It may be because that particular word just did not register. So that's a particular thought, or it might be a particular skill that's actually missing, that it's not helping that complete thought to come out and flow. So that's what
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about, at least in my perspective of what it means in those at least those gaps in your thinking process. So
Mm-hmm.
you may know how to put an IKEA furniture together because there was no instructions that came with it. So now you're just trying to figure out, okay, how does this piece and piece go here? But those instructions may be that connector that helps you to start filling in those gaps. You might know what step 2, you might know what step 5 is, but you don't even know what step 1, 3, or 4 is. So when it comes to trying to connect that, is finding what are those pieces that would help you put that in there. I'm just using, like I said, in a visual spot.
That's a good point
Yeah.
because it makes me think about uh, if you don't know how you typically or naturally connect the gaps in your thinking process, right? Then and if you don't consciously do it yourself,
Yes.
then your subconscious mind does it for you
Yes.
sometimes, or even often. And when you let your subconscious mind do it all the time, I think that's when you can become easily manipulated because
Mm.
there is a there's actually a specific technique in art. It's used in both visual arts
Yes.
and also in speeches and music as well. It's especially used in logo design.
Mm-hmm.
It's called compositional density, right?
Hmm.
And and then I even use it in my painting. So it can be used for good or bad. For like everything else, it's a
Yes.
tool, right? It's a
Yes.
double-edged sword. I use it in my art where I would paint something or draw something, but I won't draw the whole thing. I
Yes.
would I would deliberately leave out gaps because I know that your subconscious mind will fill up the gaps and make their own meaning. So
Yes.
in my case, like making the art, it's kind of helpful because sometimes I do it on purpose, but sometimes I do it because I'm lazy and I don't want to draw everything,
Yeah.
right? Uh, but like people have said that even Donald Trump has used this technique in his speech patterns where this is why his speeches seem like all over the place.
Yeah.
It's on purpose where he's deliberately just leaving like these breadcrumbs all over.
Mm-hmm.
And then his people, his base, right, make up their own meanings based on what he didn't even actually say. They're just filling in the gaps. And this is why when he was talking about using bleach to cure coronavirus, or UV or using like UV light or whatever, people were like, "Oh, he's talking about ozone therapy." Wait a minute, he never actually said that,
Yeah.
right? So they're filling their gaps on their own, like
Mm-hmm.
making these mental gymnastics. So that is why it's really important to know how you consciously do it, but also how your subconscious mind is doing it too.
Yes.
It's important to learn your subconscious patterns too
Yes.
about how it's being done.
Exactly. Because then when you're able to do that, I'll give another not visual, but another physical example. I don't know if any of y'all have, but I'm sure, especially if those are around the 90s and if not 80s, if before that, um, you have ad-libs. You have a whole little book of
Yes, ad
ad-libs,
libs, exactly.
and
Yeah.
you have this whole thing of where you got to figure out how you're going to particularly do the phrase. So they'll have a starting word, but then there's different blanks in between for you to create a story based off of a particular identifier, whether if they're saying it's a pronoun, an adjective, a verb, and you have to put those points and parts that are in there. So, in the point of being able to connect the gaps in your thinking process, yes, it's a very important to know, all right, how do I even fill in my own gaps when I think about stuff?
Hmm.
And using the ad libs, that's how you learn over time. Especially that's why, again, we go back to the repetition and practice along with the flow state. This helps you to be able to know, okay, on the point, all right, if I have to freestyle this particular speech, I know I get choked up when I start speaking on this particular point. So now you know when you start messing up on a particular point because you decided you didn't want to prepare whatever for that, you already knew for a majority of your speech or your rhyme or whatever it is, you know that, okay, I got this straight. This is the only part that I know I'm going to have difficulty with. All right, so now what can I use to help me put those points and things together so it can sound like I literally either I wrote this or that it doesn't sound like it's jumbled or over the place, and I don't leave so much room for interpretation, especially if it's something that's serious that you want to get across to people and it's not for interpretation. You want to be able to make sure that you have, quote unquote, all your ducks in a row before even wanting to share or give that out, whether it is that particular speech, poem, story, whatever it may end up being. So the other part on top of that is, okay, well, A.D.V.I.S, Kundan. Now, how do you go about doing that? Okay, I tried to sit down and look and think of my own thinking, but I just kept thinking about all these other random stuff. Now, like my head, it won't quiet down. Like it just keeps on thinking. Like, how do I silence and make it stop thinking all these different things?
Thinking about thinking, that itself, like I just want to pause there and highlight that.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking about thinking itself is a huge important thing. Like most people don't do that. Same thing with learning about learning, right? Similar to that. Thinking about thinking is it's like meta thinking. It's so important.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so with that, for those folks, and this includes myself,
Right.
oh, peace and love, Rocky Angelini in the building, y'all.
Hey
Another
Rocky.
dope individual as well as artist. Y'all go listen to this man's stuff. Just know, man, don't run the red light and get yourself a ticket, but still, just enjoy the ride. That's a random note, sorry y'all. But with that in the gaps, okay, so now how do I be able to even quiet down my own process?
Mhm.
I'm gonna go back again to the brother that came on earlier. You find particular tools that help to trigger specific thoughts, if not patterns that remind you, okay, this is where I'm at right now. I need to feel this point. Okay, I had that visually tell me this is what I should feel in there. Boom. And once again, this is it's not for it to always be like, oh, I have to keep going with this particular, you know, strategy or this particular structure. What we're doing, especially trying to learn how to connect the gaps in your thinking process, is to at least have a foundation so you can have somewhere to start. Because then, as you get older, or as you start to come across more strategies and other tools and skills, you start to fine tune and really figure out what effectively works for you when you're working, when you're creating, when you're having a conversation or a talk with somebody. You're going to be able to switch and use each and every one of those tools more effectively because you know what ends up working. Okay, you tell me all of that. All right, give me another example. All right, an example of helping to connect those gaps in your thinking process. One thing I would end up saying is practice noticing what you think about when it comes to a particular thing that you like, whether if it's you love movies or you love talking about sports or you love talking about music, whatever it may end up being. Now notice when you have a conversation with somebody or you get involved in one of those activities, see how it makes you feel, because that's another thing that happens too. We're using all of our different senses. Emotions, that's why emotions, for I like to break it down, is energy in motion. So if you know
Hmm.
how to use your emotions, you start to figure out what can help you when connecting things. Because I know when you feel like you don't know what's going on, you're lost and you don't know what to say next, anxiety can come, fear, all these other different emotions can come in and start to cloud and to mess with those gaps in your process. But knowing that, that's why you want to get into something that you know that you have a lot more knowledge on, as well as a lot more confidence in speaking and knowing about. So practicing your own thinking of how you think about what you love to think about is one.
Yeah, and also looking into why you like to think about that topic so often, right?
Mm-hmm. Because there's a drive and motivation behind it. It's the interest. Again,
Hmm.
going back to the whole thing with flow state. I do this stuff on purpose, y'all. If you don't catch it, once again, I gotta let y'all know. I do it on purpose. So you ask, okay, ultimately, A.D.V.I.S., Kundan, what would be the main point of connecting these gaps in my thinking? Why would I want to do that? And go ahead.
I think it goes back to what we said earlier about flow, right? Peak productivity, peak performance, and creativity, things like that. It can help you uh, improve your intellectual labor and mental labor. Like it can help you improve uh, what you think about, right, directly. And then what you think about will influence your actions, and then it will influence the ways you relate to others. So it will also improve your uh, relationships as well, right? You
Mm-hmm.
will know, like, and also like noticing the different patterns of thinking too, right? So I mentioned propositional density earlier, right?
Yes.
There's at least two other forms of thinking, right? Known as there's convergent thinking and divergent thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And convergent thinking is when we were young, we was asked to solve a math problem,
Yes.
right? And the math problem usually has only one solution. There's only one solution to the
Yes.
equation, only one right answer, right?
Yes.
That's true in math, but in real life, it's not true most of the time. Most of the time, there's more than one right answer. There's more than one
Mm-hmm.
right solution. There are
Mm-hmm.
multiple solutions. And this is when we get into divergent thinking, right?
Yes.
Divergent thinking is more like uh, if you have, this is an exercise I sometimes do with people. If you have a rope and a brick,
Yeah.
right? think about as many uses as possible of the rope and the bridge. What can you do with it? That would be divergent thinking. That's like a simple example of divergent thinking.
Awesome. Thank you. It also made me start to think of the importance too of the whole thing. Which you since you used the convergence and the divergence, it also made me think about optimism and pessimism.
Mm,
Thinking of those two
exactly.
realms
Yeah.
too, which also have an
Hmm.
ultimate effect on your emotions, which can trigger you having these different gaps in your thinking. Um,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
overall, when thinking of okay, we have these different ideas how to approach things. All all the main point with connecting and being able to fill these gaps in for yourself or for others, whoever may end up being, like we spoke on earlier, what it really is to do is to help build on your thinking skills as well as how you problem solve, as well as being able to show you that there is more to think about outside of the box. It is just not only the box
Hmm.
itself, but stepping outside of the box, you
Hmm.
can start to look at it from various different ways to come either back in, on the side, on the left, the right, in the middle. That's what being able to figure out where these connecting what these connections are that helps you to fill in your gaps. So if it's a clock for you that helps you to fill in the idea of like, yo, sometimes I talk too much to people and I just keep talking and talking and talking, and sometimes I just need to wrap it up. So if I need a visual to
Hmm.
tell me, okay, I look at the clock and I see, okay, it's 10:45. Not right now. It's not real time, y'all. Example. But it's 10:45. And I'm knowing me when somebody asks me a question, I can go on. All right. I might only want to talk for
Hmm.
1 or 2 minutes. All right. So when it gets to 10:47 on the clock, I'm gonna stop. Maybe it's that.
Hmm.
Maybe it's you literally writing down all these ideas for a particular object that helps you to start just thinking about, okay, now how will I approach writing this paper or approach writing this song, poem, whatever it may end up being. I know we're talking about it in a creative space, but this can be used outside of that as well. But there's a lot of us that we are creators. We're all creators in our own right, but being able to find what particular strategy works for you, maybe brainstorming out loud with another person helps you to start filling in different things, because you might have an idea, you might have like the first few, maybe the intro and the and some a part of a few bars, but then where do I want to take it further? Somebody might be like, oh, what if you want to put a twist there? And that helps you to start filling in, okay, that's how it goes. So I know if I really want to come up with something, I can add another person in to get their thoughts and perspectives. And it helps me to start filling things in. So
Hmm.
it's being able to know, once again, yes, how you think, what things you use that can help you think, as well as what you like to think about, help you notice what you can use to think about what you think about. Yes, it's a conundrum. Think about what you think about to think about. But that would be my points there when it comes to that. You have anything else on
Yeah,
it?
and also one more thing would be direct thinking versus indirect thinking, right? Which is related to direct communication versus indirect communication. I prefer storytelling because it's more indirect.
Yeah.
Uh, and similar to what I said about parable versus truth, right? Cloaking uh,
Yes.
truth in a story.
Yes.
And but sometimes I want to leave no room for miscommunication or misinterpretation. That's when I
Mm-hmm.
speak more directly in my poetry. But
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I prefer to do it via story where I'm just planting a seed and letting it grow on your own so that
Yes.
it becomes a tree in your mind. That way you feel like your own idea, right? It's more
Mm,
powerful that way. But similar to that is direct thinking versus indirect thinking, where uh, sometimes you can approach a problem directly, and
yes.
sometimes you might want to approach a problem sideways, similar to out of the box. Like an example would be I
Mm,
read a marketing book called Uncopyable, right? And in that
mm,
marketing book, he said something really interesting. He said, don't copy Like if you have a business, don't copy other people in your industry, because when you do that, everybody else is doing it too, right? They're also
Mm,
trying to copy each other. And pretty soon we have a bunch of copycats in the industry, and then everybody's competing and competing, and that's how prices uh, become cheaper and cheaper, and it becomes more of a price war where everybody's undercutting each
mm,
other, and becomes
yes.
the product eventually becomes a commodity, right? So he said instead copy a business that is not in your industry from some other industry way out of your range,
Yes.
then you become unique in your industry. So that's the indirect approach. All right. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Once again, y'all, making yourself aware of all these different approaches and how stuff can work for you.
Mm,
That's the main thing is I say it in a lot of stuff, but yeah, if I don't know what I think about, how I think about it, when I think about it, how am I going to be able to approach certain problems that I may have never encountered before? So, with that, y'all,
yep.
to round out and to sum up and to finish up with the live for today, when it comes to thinking of the current events, whether if it's doing with health, world news, or anything that's closely tied to you, be sure to continue to do your research and knowledge on it, because this day and age, there is no reason that you should not know what is going on directly around you or indirectly
Or
around you.
indirectly. Yep.
Second, when it comes to the flow state, which is, you can look this up, the main purpose of what does and the benefits is to focus you, help you with problem solving, also ease a bit of your anxiousness and worry, especially when you meet the
Mm-hmm.
criterias of having the skill and meeting that plateau and having that interest and love for the activity that
Mm-hmm.
you're doing. It's the flow state. And with ending it, to connect it all together and connect those gaps in your thinking process, be able to be aware of what you think about, how you think about it, why you think about it, why you like it, and what can help you to fill in those gaps, whether if it's a visual, whether if it's a sound, whether if it's brainstorming with another person. But being able to fill and connect those gaps help also with productivity, problem solving again, as well as being
Mm-hmm.
able to have a sense and flow and ebb with all that is around you. But
Mm-hmm.
with that, y'all, appreciate everybody's attention. Appreciate all those who've been watching. For those who are watching this later on Instagram and YouTube, don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, all those things. I've been your brother A.D.V.I.S. This has been Kundan. What's the Word Wednesday, Season 2, Episode 15. And we'll see you in 2 weeks. We're going to take a break next week. But other than that, y'all, peace and one love. Till next time.
All righty. Peace and love.